Yo, what up guys, it's Flark and welcome to my Demon Hunter Dragonflight Season 1 PvP guide to get you started with rated arena, rated battlegrounds, rated solo shuffle when those brackets drop in just a few days here. I think the timing of this video is very good because the tuning pass, the second tuning pass for PvP came in and we got to see some things, some nerfs here, some output nerfs, some healing nerfs. Of course, Demon Hunter was included in those healing nerfs, but its output was very much still intact. In fact, it's very high sustained damage, burst damage, AoE pressure, AoE burst. It's got a lot of power there, so we kind of know that this spec is going to be good in all three types of brackets, you know, arena, basic arena, solo shuffle, or RBGs. It's going to be good in all three of those. It's got the toolkit for it, it's got the output as long as it can live. And even with the healing nerfs, I feel like it's still got a lot of leech, it's got blur, it's got dark, you can get dark on a shorter cooldown. With that talent to make it that 3-minute dark again, and it's got the 50% effect still in PvP. So you've got your tools. Reverse magic is another one to make a huge impact on the meta in this first season without being tremendously overpowered if they keep being good about these tuning passes like they have been. So great job there. Hopefully they keep it up. And let's talk about Demon Hunter, because you guys aren't here for this blabber. You're here for how to make the best build and the best setup that you can to be proficient, hopefully, in the new season. So let's get into it with gearing. Of course, you're going to start off with this room right here, this building, and you're going to get a full set of honor gear from this guy. And when the conquest comes out, the arena season, you're going to use this guy. And a spoiler there, you can buy weapons first. You're going to get conquest next week, right? Buy weapons first. Save up for them, buy both your weapons first. That's a really good safe bet. If you get one from the vault, even luckier, because then you have both and you can use the rest of your conquest the next week on something else. But yeah, of course, you don't care about that. What you care about is what stats should I buy from said vendor? And that is a fantastic question because generally Demon Hunter uses all haste and verse. That's what it used in BFA easily. BFA Season 4, it was just all haste and verse and gushing wounds. Shadowlands, haste and verse. And now haste and verse is still insanely good, but Mastery and Crit got a lot better. They used to be just kind of like dead stats in PvP for Demon Hunter, especially Mastery. But now they've gotten a lot better. And I have to actually sneak into the talents just to show you, to make sure you understand why. Of course, you got Know Your Enemy, which is a talent that says gain critical strike damage equal to 80% of your critical strike chance. So I shouldn't even have to explain why that makes crit better, because it's giving you a modifier that general crit does not have, right? You're making that crit damage modifier more impactful than any other spec, except for Ellie Shaman, who also has a crit damage modifier like that. And then, of course, you go over here and you see any means necessary. And this makes all of your elemental damage chaos damage, and you have a lot of elemental damage. Of course, we've talked about this in the pre-patch, but fire damage from Immo Aura, you've got shadow damage from Demon's Blade, and of course, you have hunt damage, which was nature, but that turns it into chaos. So this and the huge hunt dot now scales with your mastery. And these are very, very, very big changes. So yeah, mastery becomes much more high rot output from the Immo ticks, and then huge burst output from the hunt. And even then, it has another component where it increases your movement speed with a talent in here that you're pretty much guaranteed to get. I hovered right over it, Pursuit there. So Mastery gets more value, Crit gets more. I mean, Mastery always increased your movement speed, but its output was so low that you couldn't do that. Your mobility was fine. But I'm just saying, now that the output from Mastery is good, the movement speed effect is actually pretty nice. That's even more mobility from a high mobility spec, going to be very difficult to peel. Anyway, I had to explain all that because otherwise the answer of all your stats would not really resonate well for you. Because we know Verse is a king stat, and we know you're going to get it on every PvP piece anyway. So that makes Verse, Haste, Mastery, and Crit good. And you can actually do that no problem because of how customizable your jewelry stats are. We're talking ring, and necklace. And when those scale up, that is a ton of secondary stats on those pieces. So you can switch up your stats if you're like, oh, I'm a little low on crit. Maybe I'll add some crit. You can add a crit ring. Oh, well, I'm really low on mastery. Switch your haste necklace to a mastery necklace. And what I did is I did just that. Mastery, haste, haste, mastery, haste. But then the crit, haste, mastery, crit, 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 haste, 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 right? So you got a little bit of everything. Now, of course, I leaned on haste because it's traditionally the best stat for Demon Hunters. So I have, as you can see, just mathematically, the most haste, then crit and mastery are very close. And of course, all the verse you need comes right from the PvP gear. So you don't even have to you don't have to reach out and try and find that. You just got it. You got all the verse you need. So that's what I built. I built a mixed set. Emphasize still haste because it's always been the best stat for Demon Hunter, but more mastery and crit than you've ever put into Demon Hunter to give you some extra burst from the hunt, some extra rot pressure, some crit damage modifiers. It's very, very cool. And as the expansion goes on, you're just going to get more secondary stats because the item level of your gear is going to go up. So you're just going to be able to compound that mixed build even more and more and more. And wow, the throughput from Demon Hunter looks to be really good this whole expansion. So anyway, I grabbed a badge as well, even though Insignia would work just fine. Because you macro it to your hunt and you get a little bit of a one-shot. Now, of course, I've been doing skirms and fast games, and I've been trying to win as quickly as possible here. So hunt macroed with badge is a great way to do that. You have a ton of burst and AoE burst from Essence Break as well. We'll talk about that in a second. But you can absolutely just run Insignia if the meta develops a little slower, which I think it might during the arena season. You can just run Insignia to have a little bit more sustained throughput. Boom. Easy. For enchants, we're not going to talk a lot about those until maybe deep into Season 1 when the prices come down. I still think I've seen enchants on populated servers that are getting like reset by like 20k or something. But yeah, I mean, you can mix your stats still with the ring enchants. Of course, the weapon enchants are expensive, but once the season comes out, you get those conquest weapons. We'll figure out what we're putting on right there. And then, of course, you have your tertiary stats from bracers and cloaks. I went with leech there, as you can see. Demon Hunter already has a ton of leech. That's a massive amount of healing. It's helpful to supplement those healing nerfs. So yeah, tons of enchants. Some of them are too expensive. This is just a starter guide to get into the beginning of the PvP season, but you will start throwing those out when the conquest gear comes out, and it's not going to be replaced. So that's awesome. Okay, talents. Thank you for bearing with me in that long-winded approach, but I knew telling you that all the stats were good might be a little confusing at first, and I wanted to make sure I explained it well, and I hope that I did. Okay, but talents, yeah, so we talked about them. Here's the capstone, any means necessary. Here's the capstone, essence break. I talked about that. It's right after the crit damage modifier, which is great because it actually bursts really hard. Now, they nerfed the essence break damage, but not the modifier to it, right? Just the damage it did, which was a ton, by the way. But yeah, it still modifies Chaos Strike and Blade Dance by 80%. With the Blade Dance package, your Blade Dance is hitting insanely hard. So let's take a look at some of those. So again, you have the capstones. You've got Chaos Theory, which is Annihilation buff from Blade Dance. So you can see how the Blade Dance and Chaos Strike synergy is all around these last three burst talents here. Then, of course, you've got Fodder to the Flame. This was the Necrolord Covenant ability. It's a massive heal. They nerfed the heal by a ton, but you still get leech healing from it. And it still does a ton of damage. Oh, and by the way, it still gives you a damage buff. Now, because of those nerfs, you absolutely could see a lot more people playing Elysian. This is a massive burst option, and this wasn't nerfed much at all in the base ability. Now, there are some sigil modifiers that do probably matter with all the sigil stuff. Which you can see I decided to not go into now because of those nerfs, which again, if you don't know what the nerfs are, please just go to Wowhead and check the most recent tuning pass. But yeah, both of these talents are insane. One of them is very burst heavy and one of them is very sustain heavy. Again, it's kind of like the Insignia badge thing. Which one is the best for you right now? It depends on what comp you're playing and how the meta is developing. Then, of course, you've got all the Throwglaive modifiers that work with Soul Rend. Now, it's not the pre-patch level Soul Rend, but it's still hammers. If you've queued into Demon Hunters, you know it's still like their third damage, even maybe their first damage if it's a very cleave-centric or sustain-centric, maybe an RBG with a big team fight. Soul Rend could easily make it right back up to the top. So you get Throwglaive modifiers, you get the double Soul Rend. Here's Immo Aura modifiers, which we talked about how that scales with your mastery. So all Immo Aura modifiers are good. That's Growing Inferno, Burning Wound. Now you've got a Blade Dance dot. So now you've got even more sustain. You got Immo dot, Soul Rend dot, Trail of Ruin dot. Oh my god, the raw pressure from Demon Hunter is surreal. Now you've got the I-Beam package here. Make I-Beam do a lot more damage. Make I-Beam give you haste. I already talked about how haste has always been the best stat for Demon Hunter, so I think it's still going to be fantastic. I-Beam deals 25% more damage with Isolated Prey, generates Fury, lasts longer, does more damage, Chaotic Transform. This resets all your cooldowns, including I-Beam, which gets you back into Metamorphosis from the Demonic talent, which is over here. This is an auto pick in every situation. Having you go I-Beam, Blade Dance, Meta, reset both of them, I-Beam, Blade Dance again. That has been a inherent part of DH's mechanic since Chaotic Transformation was introduced in BFA, and they never got rid of it. So now it has just been a talent or a rank 2 effect in Shadowlands, right? But it's always been there since BFA, where you go I-Beam, Blade Dance, there's Demonic meta, then you get meta, and then you reset I-Beam, use it again, and you continue to extend your meta and get another huge Blade Dance. That applies Trail of Ruin and does a ton of AoE cleave damage. Here's more Blade Dance modifiers right here, throw glaive modifiers right here, and First Blood is a Blade Dance modifier, and then Blade Dance gives you an MS effect. We already talked, Demon's Blades has been used pretty much for the last, 5 years. It's just, you don't need your spender because you just use Fellblade as your spender, which is also over here. I'll talk about this more in detail, I promise. So you can just get passive Fury Gen, passive additional damage, which now becomes chaos damage. And you use Fellblade as your generator, and it also charges you to the target to add to your mobility. Wow. Okay. So there's the right side of the talents. Again, you got a I-Beam package. You've got some staple talents. Of course, all the stuff at the top is generally staple. You've got the Throw Glaive modifiers, and you got the Chaos Strike and Blade Dance modifiers. Mostly the Blade Dance modifier. There is a Chaos Strike, does 20% more damage, but you have to go down the left side. And the left side is not what I think is going to be as interesting right now, considering the raw amount of throughput you can get from this build. But as the season goes, we're going to see, and I will make adjustments. That's one thing you'll always know about my videos, is when things come out that prove that a certain talent or a certain thing is BIS for a class, I will always make adjustments to future guides and to my own thinking. I just want to show you the best stuff. I don't want to be right. I'm hoping that I'm right, but the season has not started yet. So we're going to learn a lot about the game in the coming weeks. But this is some obscene throughput. And when I played it to get honor for my gear, so I could show you guys the gear that I was running, the games went really good. So thumbs up to that. And I hope it works for you too. Now the left side, of course. Let's talk about some of these things. There's Mastery increases movement speed. Going down the middle and the left row, just avoiding the sigils right now after the nerfs is what I'm doing. You've got some core utility stuff like Imprison. This is your CC. Purge. Purge is great now, especially with Evokers. Using that nullifying shroud to make them immune to 3 crowd control effects. That makes Consume Magic so impactful. Fellblade, we talked about this, is a mobility generator, so tier 1 talent. Mobility generators are really good. They give you mobility, and while you're using that mobility, they give you the resources to do damage once you've connected to them with the mobility. Wow. Here's your long-range kick. That's a staple of Demon Hunter. Meta reduction of cooldown, that's a no-brainer. This is your soul rending, which gives them all that leech, which gives them a ton of healing, including still with Fodder to the Flame, because again, you throw that glaive, you get the leech heal. That's fantastic. Demonic is just more Metamorphosis, and we know Metamorphosis gives you leech and haste and buffs all your abilities, so getting into that more often is way better than just reducing its cooldown. Now, the verse from this I think is insane, but I just think the access to meta is better in Demonic than it is from First. And the verse again is so insane. The fact that this gives verse means I want to give it a watchful eye. I want to take a look at this, because now you're giving yourself more meta and you're giving it more impact, but it's not nearly as much meta as you're getting from Demonic, because not only do you get that double I-Beam combo I talked about to extend your first meta by so much, but then you're just getting I-Beams over the course of the whole game. So you're just getting little goes the whole time, right? So doing damage outside your main offensive windows is a huge staple of what makes good classes. Ret Paladin, last season, proc wings. Without proc wings, how good do you think they would have been? A lot worse, because they only trade 2-minute goes for 2-minute cooldowns, right? So having Demonic is a huge part of why DH Boomy, DH DK feel they can always put you on the back foot. So obviously leaning heavily toward Demonic, but let's watch First of the Illidari. Okay, really wanted to talk about that because it's important. Throw Glaive having 2 charges is a staple for Soul Rend. No no question. Fellfire Haste is mobility. Now you've got your AoE stun, which is fantastic on a short cooldown because you can run Unleashed Power. I think this is going to be a lot better than people think. Reducing the Fury cost makes it more available on demand. Sometimes you could just be like a couple Furies short during an important window that you could actually capitalize on their positioning and get a good go. And the cooldown reduction actually makes it desync with a lot of people's defensives, throwing it off that minute, which is awesome since, again, you have cooldowns that are shorter than a minute, so you don't need it to pair with minute-long cooldowns. That's not that important. So Unleashed Power feels really good. Here's some tankiness stuff. You've got the health and the magic damage reduction. Increasing your mastery is just great because it's a great stat. You need darkness. This is an AoE. Again, this is 50% in PvP, not 20%. Way better in PvP. So, of course, you want to reduce the cooldown too to make it more something you can rotate rather than something you use once per game. We talked ad nauseum about how amazing the hunt is, but let me just reiterate, it is amazing. Massive burst. Still has a little bit of a heal, not as good after the nerfs, but massive burst, massive dot, tons of range. It takes you right to them from across the map. It's very hard to deal with this ability. And then here's another thing that's incredible. This other capstone, Collective Anguish. This was a legendary before, but it does the fire damage now, right? Feldev does fire damage, which turns... because this is the fire damage modifier right there. It turns it into your mastery buffed as well. So not only does this do a lot of healing because it's Feldev, which actually does a ton of healing, it now does even more damage than it used to when it was a legendary effect from one talent on the left side. So you run this one talent, you get a ton of healing and a ton of extra damage on every I-beam. And we already talked about how I-beams can set up a go. Well, now you set it up while healing yourself and doing a ton of extra damage. Wow. Okay. And that's that, right? So you got your utility, you've got some really classic abilities, some iconic abilities, you got your purge, you got tons of burst, and you've got a massive heal here. That's a good setup. I'm going to link it in the description. I swear it's going to be good, but I'll make any adjustments as the season goes on and as we learn new things. Talking about some PvP talents real quick, reverse is a staple. You can get your allies out of CCs. You can reverse Soul Rot during an Affliction Locks goes. You can reverse a set of dots from Shadow Priest or Aflock. Or Ellie, you can even get that off of you since they use it to proc Lava Burst. You could get Flame Shock off you and your teammates, and hopefully they have to spend some globals to reapply it, so that slows them down. You can reverse pretty much any negative effect, like Mind Games is a great one, and CC, Roots. There's so many things, right? Polys, Roots, Fears. Wow. Awesome ability. This is a staple. Detainment is also a staple now. It's fantastic because you do so much AoE pressure and raw damage, and a lot of your comps just ooze damage. So this can do so many different things. One, it doesn't break. Your ooze damage comps do not do super well with breakable CC. This does not break. Two, it's a skill shot. You can use it on somebody's defensives when they're low health. Okay, so you do a ton of DH burst because that's what you're known for. And then they get extremely low health, but then they pop some walls and they're about to get full healed. Oh! You detain them. Now it's like a cyclone is on them, but an instant cyclone, so they can't even stop the cast. And all of a sudden now their defensives are ticking down in the detainment, right? In the imprison. And the healing cooldowns are not able to be used. They'll go right into that cyclone effect and it won't do anything. And then they come out of it and you still have pressure, but they lost some of their counter to that pressure, their defensives, and you can finish them off. It's a great CC for a healer that doesn't break, or it's a great cyclone effect, right? That can stop defensives from the enemy team or freeze somebody's health pool. And there's nothing they can do because in an instant it does not require a cast time like Cyclone. So very disruptive, a great skill shot there. I use Chaotic Imprint because I love doing damage, but Glimpse I think is another fantastic skill shot that I want to reference here. If you pre-glimpse, and this is tough, this is a skill shot from Demon Hunter, right? So you have to be watching DRs on yourself, watching kidney DR. Let's say it's got 2 seconds left, right? 2 seconds. Sorry, I have webbed fingers. That looks like a 3. It could be 3. It doesn't matter. 3 seconds left, right? And you're waiting for the timer and you're counting it down, and then you see the rogue on you and they're setting up that go. The priest is already running over to your healer to CC him, so you know what they're going to do. And right when the DR comes off, you press Vengeful Retreat. You're going to immune all incoming CCs, and if you get that, you catch that kidney because you predicted what he was going to do. That's completely game-changing. And of course, it doesn't have to be kidney. You can immune Stormbolts. You can immune incoming polys. You can immune any CC effect, but that kidney one that's the ticket right there. That's an incredible feeling, right? It's tough to do. It's definitely a skill shot. But once you get really good at your class, making plays like that is completely game-changing. It can be the difference between immediately getting flattened by Rogue Mage burst and a kidney shot and being completely fine because you're immune, then you just fell rush behind a pillar, wait for your healer to come out of CC, and the Rogue Mage is baffled on the outplay, right? So good stuff there. Glimpse is another skill shot. You got reverse, you got to use that correctly, and detainment, you can even use that correctly. So while I do on my stream talk about the raw amount of output and how difficult it can be as a DK generally to deal with the Demon Hunter, I have to give them the nod for some great, well-designed PvP talents for skill shots here. And that's it. That's it. That's it. That's the talents. That's the PvP talents. That's what you got. That's the spec. I think it's going to be amazing in solo shuffle. It has on-demand pressure. It has instant damage, instant CC, AoE CC. It can really be disruptive, and teams don't have enough time to build synergy to handle what you're going to do. You're going to be in there. You're going to be doing damage. You're tough to kill. You're tough to peel. You've got great mobility, so make it happen. This is definitely a good season to play Demon Hunter. So have fun. Have a great time, and I'll see you in the next video.